Hey everyone! Just wanted to do a quick follow-up video from the practice problems from Tuesday's lesson, just to address any misconceptions that y'all might have had. So, just to go over, let's look at number 1, where we are going to be selecting all equations that describe each situation. So this is a super important skill because one of the coolest things about algebra is the fact that you can take any real-world situation and create like an algebraic equation to like solve it or figure something out about it. So in number 1, it says Karan's backpack weighs 3 pounds less than Claire's backpack. Okay, and Claire's backpack weighs 14 pounds. So then our question is, how much does Karan's backpack weigh? So once again, this underlined or bolded all is telling us that there's going to probably be more than one answer here. So a lot of you were able to figure out that x equals 11. Okay, so once again, whatever the question is, that's what your variable is going to represent, because the variable is that unknown number. So that's always what the question is asking. What is that number I don't know yet? So that question is always going to mean that that's what your variable is. So x is the weight of Karan's backpack, because that's our question. That's what we're trying to find. That's our variable. So, and we know that Karan's backpack is 3 pounds less than Claire's. Less than is a good indicator that we're going to be doing subtraction. Because subtraction, typically, unless you're subtracting a negative number, makes things smaller. So Claire's backpack is 14 pounds. And if we wanted to find that, we would have to subtract 3 from it. And we would get that Karan's backpack is 11 pounds. And we can see right here, C illustrates that perfectly. Okay. Now, we can eliminate two possible solutions right away. If this is subtraction, the only other possible equation that it could go with would be an addition problem, because subtraction and addition are inverse operations. So they're like opposite operations, so they kind of go together. You can go back and forth between them. B and D are multiplication and division. I can just kind of eliminate those right away. I mean, B is saying 3 times of Karan's book bag weight is Claire's book bag weight? I don't think so. And here we're dividing Claire's backpack by 3, so that would be saying that Karan's book bag is 1/3 of the weight. That's not what it says at all. It says 3 pounds less than. So the other solution here would have been A, because once again, if we would have taken Karan's book bag and added 3 pounds to its weight, then we would get Claire's backpack. So once again, this inverse operation shows that both of these could have worked. We could think of it as Karan's backpack is 3 pounds less, or Claire's backpack is 3 pounds more. They mean the same thing. So this next one was a little bit more confusing. Andre's notebook, he has 5 of them, and each one contains 60 sheets of paper. Each is kind of an important word. Anytime you see the word each, that should automatically indicate to you that it's a multiplication problem, because you have multiple items with the same quantity inside of them. So he has 5 notebooks, each with 60 pages. So how many sheets of paper do Andre's notebooks contain? So once again, in this case, X is all the sheets in his notebooks put together. Oh, I'm sorry. They used Y here, not X. Should have been Y here. It's important that you do use the correct variable that they use within the problem. So B is an obvious answer. He's got 5 notebooks, each with 60 pages. Multiply them together. He has 300 pages in total. Now, once again, we need to be able to do the inverse. And everything here is an inverse. There's only division and multiplication. So this one's a little bit more tricky. But once again, this was the easiest one to choose. And I feel confident that I have the right answer. So I can substitute this in and see if any other problems would give me the same answer. So if I plugged it into A, 300 equals 60 divided by 5. That does not work. Because 60 divided by 5 is 12. So that doesn't work. What about C? 300 divided by 5 equals 60. And 300 divided by 5 does equal 60. So that would be the other correct answer. Important to note that, so if we think about what this means, this is saying if you took all 300 of the pages that he had and divided it into 5 separate notebooks, each notebook would have 60 pages. So just like opposite ways of viewing it. 5 notebooks with 60 pages each, multiply them together to get 300. Then if you had those 300 pages and divided them into 5 separate notebooks, you would be having 60 pages in each. Okay, so those would be the 2 solutions there. And down below, this one was a little bit tricky. Most people got number 1 right? So this is saying 4 times what is 32? Because next to notation, this is multiplication. So if you're ever multiplying but you're missing a factor and you have the answer, then you would do the inverse operation and you would divide to find out that x equals 8. And once again, if we plug that back in, 4 times 8, putting in that value for that variable, 4 times 8 is in fact 32. So I know that I got my answer correct here. Okay. Now a lot of people said 2 was also 8, but there's a problem here. Because this problem actually says 32 times what is 4. 32 is the number doing the multiplication. 32 is the number attached to a variable. So if I'm multiplying and then getting a smaller number, what does that mean? If you're going to multiplication, I thought always made a number bigger. Except if you're multiplying by a fraction or a decimal. So I know that my answer here must be a decimal. So once again, if you're multiplying but you're missing a factor, then you need to do division to solve. But I'm not going to divide by 4. I'm going to divide by 32 because you always, always, always divide by the coefficient or the number that's attached to the variable. It's always the number you divide by. And so I would get x equals, 32 can't fit into 4, so you could just leave your solution as a fraction, as 4 over 32. And if you simplified that, the GCF here is 4. This can be divided by 4, and this can be divided by 4, and you would get the solution 1/8. Okay, so x equals 1/8. And if you multiplied this, 1/8 of 32, or 32 times 1/8 is 4. So that was the correct solution there. And now these other two, these ones were cool because they reviewed our idea of place value. So shout out to people who didn't use a calculator and just kind of remembered our rules. So once again, this is 10 times what is 26. We're dividing both by 10. This one is 100 times what equals 26. So this one we're dividing by 100. Always dividing by that coefficient. And remember, anytime you divide by a base 10 number, base 10 numbers are 10, 100, 1,000. Then the decimal place moves to the left, the number shrinks by however many zeros that your divisor has. So if you ever divided something by 10, it would shrink by 1 place value. And 2 6/10 would be my answer. And so in this other problem, I'm dividing by 100, which is a base 10 number with 2 zeros, so I would shrink 2 whole place values. And x would be 26 hundredths. Okay, so big takeaway here, always divide by the coefficient. Even if the coefficient is bigger than the answer on the other side of the equal sign, that's okay. As you go through math, you are not always going to be getting these pretty whole number answers. Moving forward, expect to see more fractional answers and more decimal answers, okay? So you really have to push yourself to rely on the rules that you know to solve every problem, okay? Good luck on today's lesson.